Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the first edition Blue Line Blast podcast. Jim Biringer, your host, alongside my co-host, Matthew Blittner from Sportsology. And then first episode, he's down on location in Carolina. We are here. We've talked about it for a long time. Back, better than ever. We got playoff hockey. Matthew, so good to have you here.
Great to be here. And I mean, first episode, wow, we're doing big things. It's historic in a sense. It's probably the biggest amount of history that's happened in the last, 24 hours?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, if we want to talk about what happened on wrestling, we could save that for another time. WWE, there was some history there, but I think our history is a little bit better. I think our history is better because we got Stanley Cup playoff action. We got this new podcast we're dropping here, and let's just dive into it. The New Jersey Devils, we both cover the team. You do it for Sportsology. Russ Cohen, great guy. I do it Full Press Hockey and other sites as well. And the New Jersey Devils, let's be honest here, going into Carolina, the record against Carolina in Carolina was not the greatest. 3-12 is now 3-13 in 16 playoff games. And they just look like a team that, let's be honest, was a little bit afraid, overmatched, a little nervy. Outside the goaltender, the rest of the team didn't show up until 21 minutes left in the game. And you saw it on the scoreboard. And you know what's coming, but you just can't defend it. And the Carolina Hurricanes did that against the New Jersey Devils.
Well, it's funny that you should mention about the looking nervous for some of the players. So today is an off day for the Devils, but they still had a small media avail. We got to speak with head coach Sheldon Keefe, as well as Jacob Markstrom, Andre Plott, and Brett Pesce. And Pesce, toward the end of his avail, actually mentioned saying how, some of the players on the team did seem a bit nervous, at least early in the game. So you hit it on the head right there. Playoffs are a different animal in hockey. Let's call a spade, put your cards on the table. Oh, playoffs in hockey are so different than every other aspect of live sports and so different than even the hockey regular season. It is just nonstop energy. It is nonstop going, and you just can't let up. You can't, take that hesitation and have that second. Sheldon Keefe and Jacob Markstrom both talked about how, there are some players who they need to just, they need to think and react more instinctively instead of taking a second or two and, wondering what was going to happen and then being forced into a bad play. And that's really at the crux of this. Keith mentioned the other day about you're not going to be able to contain the Carolina Hurricanes in terms of the shot clock. He admitted the Devils are going to get outshot every game probably. He said it was something like only 8 games all year that the Hurricanes actually were outshot by their opponent. They shoot from all over the ice from all angles. But if you can limit the damage and if you can get bodies in front, if you can, block shots, if you can give your goalie some clear sight on where the shots are coming from, you can negate the overwhelming shot volume and maybe make things easier that way. But it wasn't so much the defense as it's also the Devils couldn't break out of their zone. They couldn't get into the O-zone, and then once they were in the O-zone, they couldn't stay there. They need to work on that, which is something that all four acknowledged today, and that's going to be the key tomorrow night, on Tuesday night, because you can't expect them to play the same way and expect a different result. They need to play better if they can have any chance in this series.
No, I agree with that 100%, right? Like, that's the biggest thing for me coming into the series against Carolina was you knew what the forecheck was going to be. You knew they weren't going to give the Devils time and space. You knew the shots and everything. And giving up 45 shots and expecting to win a hockey game is very, very difficult in this league. Now, credit to Jacob Markstrom. He made tremendous saves after tremendous saves, especially 3-1 in the third period when Luke Hughes went down and then Cody Glass got injured. And you're like, and the Carolina Hurricanes had an open chance to score, and there was Markstrom. But the issue is New Jersey in this playbook that Carolina's put together, seemingly since 2023, if not beyond. Before that, they just pressure the Devils, and they're a young team, And instead of using this stretch breakout pass that they like to do with this rush attack, they're going to have to learn to make shorter, quick passes because the Carolina Hurricanes do not give them anything through the neutral zone in Carolina's own defensive zone. The goal that they scored was 4-on-4, a lot of ice there. They're going to have to manufacture goals. They're going to have to manufacture greasy goals. They did finally put a lot of shots on Freddie Andersen in the third period. But before that, at one point towards the end of the second period, the shots were 36-12 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. That's not going to win you a hockey game. And then we're also favored on the scoreboard too. But still, 36-12 is not going to get it done against a very good team like the Hurricanes, who had some hiccups coming into the end of the season and found a way to turn it on. And New Jersey, again, consistently inconsistent offensively. This team has just struggled. Even when they did have a healthy lineup, it was, okay, goals here, nothing there. They have to figure out a way to manufacture some goals, and that's the way they're going to win the series, because right now it's all Canes all the time.
Look, Sheldon Keefe said it best. He said that you know what you're getting in the Carolina Hurricanes. There's no gray area. It's black and white. You know what you're in for. You know what to expect. And yet somehow, and it's not just the Devils who have fallen victim to the Hurricanes over the last 4 or 5 years with this, the Hurricanes continue to do it night in, night out against pretty much all their opponents until it wears on them and it becomes a double-edged sword as they go later on in the playoffs. But right now in the first round, the Hurricanes are still basically, we'll call it fresh. This is what you can expect from them. This is what you know you're going to get from them. Brett Pesce played for them. Stephen Nathan played for them. Eric Haula played for them, but let's not talk about Eric Haula playing for Carolina. Brett Pesce said it. You know what you're getting out of them. You know what to expect, and you still can't do anything about it. It's like Mariano Rivera and his cutter back when he was the soldier of the Yankees. You knew what he was going to throw. You knew there was a cut fastball coming in that was going to bore in on left-handers, and guess what? You still couldn't hit it. And so just like this, you still can't prevent the Carolina Hurricanes from doing what they do best. You can only hope to weather the storm, which the Devils were doing in the first period. It was something like 15-5 shots on goal at one point. And then early second period, I think it was a minute and a half in roughly, Jacob Markstrom made 3 unbelievable saves in succession while sprawled out on his stomach. It could have been game over right then and there. But he managed to keep them in the game. There was a lot of questions from people about, before the game, before the series, who has the edge in net? Is it Freddie Andersen for the Carolina, or is it Jacob Markstrom for the Devils? Jacob Markstrom didn't lose that game last night. Yes, you can say, 3 goals, fourth one being an empty netter. You can say, look at the amount of shots, look at the quality of shots that he faced. You could put Ken Dryden, playoff Ken Dryden. You could put Dominic Hafford. You could put Marty Brodeur, who, by the way, was in the building last night. You can put them in there. They're giving up 3 goals on 44 shots. Because the last one, again, empty netter. That was how overwhelmed the Devils were last night. So Jacob Markstrom did not lose that game. If anything, he's the reason that game wasn't 7-1, 8-1.
No, I agree with that 100%. I mean, even Brodeur was in this series, right? Like, look, before 2023, Martin Brodeur saw that team 4 times. He was 1-3 against that team, right? Like this, they know what they're going to get from this team, and they always find a way. Now, again, it's the PNC. We know what the shot clock is and all that stuff, whatever. People can say whatever they want, but New Jersey has to find a way to counter that, whether it's being on the special teams, whether it's being aggressive on the shorthanded. They have to figure out a way to manufacture goals defensively in front of Markstrom. Like you said, got to get in the way, got to move bodies, got to block some shots, because that's what Carolina did in the first 2 periods for Andersen. They blocked a lot of shots. They got in the lanes. They protected Freddie. Third period, Frederik Andersen stood on his head. Like, let's be honest, the Devils pressed and pressed and pressed when it was 3-1. Timo Meier got robbed a number of times. He sure got robbed a couple of times, even after the goal, right? Frederik Andersen came up for the goods for the Carolina Hurricanes when his team needed him the most to do it. And the pressure that Carolina puts on this young Devils team, and they're still very young, even though they have guys that have won Stanley Cups, been in Stanley Cup finals, Stanley Cup playoffs, the core of this team has had 2 playoff appearances before now. And you know what happened. They just have to play a patient game, stick to the system, but they can't give up 45 shots and lose. Like Jacob Markstrom did everything he was supposed to do, as you said, to win them a game. They just got to put the puck in the net and get pressure on Frederik Andersen. And that's the key right now. Get pucks deep. The cliche, Nico Hischier said it best post-game. I know you were in the room, heard it on television. Simple, hard hockey. They don't do anything fancy. The Devils just have to not do anything fancy, too. Keep it simple.
Again, you hit it right there. And, I mean, you hit it on the head. Nico Hischier hit it on the head, as the captain tends to do, and especially this year. The Devils, this series is going to be determined by what the Devils do tomorrow night. If the Devils can go out, make the adjustments, and succeed at those adjustments, win or lose in the game, whether they tie the series 1-1 or they go down 2-0, if they can make the adjustment and make Carolina then have to start changing their game, then it's a whole different series going back to New Jersey. If the Devils come out Tuesday night in Game 2 the same way that they came out and played for the majority of Game 1, then barring a breakdown by Freddie Andersen, which, okay, it has happened to him. Let's be true here. Unless that happens, the Devils are going to be in for what could be a very short series, even going back to New Jersey. Because Carolina's not afraid of playing on the road, and the Devils were not a very good home team this year. They were under 500. The Devils were a much better road team this year. Of course, Carolina is a very good home team. So that's something that's going against them in that favor. But going back to New Jersey is not going to shift the momentum unless the Devils shift the momentum in Game 2.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to ask you this. Look, having played not at that level, coaches can only ask the players to adjust so much with the film. Does it really come down to what the players on the ice, can they execute that game plan? Is it that simple?
We've seen it this year. Actually, Amanda Stein, the Devils team digital reporter, asked that question multiple times today to the players and to the coach who all spoke about, all year long, when the Devils hit a rut, when they get into trouble, this group has been able to look at what they did, look at what happened, and then use what went wrong and move on to getting right again. So, and that's a sentiment that was not only talked about in her questions, but in their answers. And, the Devils have it in them to make the adjustment. The question is whether they will be able to stay calm, cool, and collected enough to make that. Because Carolina's going to press. We know that. Carolina's going to press. Carolina's going to forecheck. Carolina's going to do what Carolina does. No pun intended. They are going to create a storm on the ice that will make it seem like there is an actual hurricane of shots coming your way. It's up to the Devils to say to themselves, we need to a man, adjust, stay calm, not get flustered, not let the bright lights of the postseason, not let the overwhelming shot amount of the Hurricanes fluster us. We need to stay in it, and we need to play our game. If they do that, good things are going to happen. The question is whether they will do that. So far this year, they've shown that they could. Now let's see them do it when it matters most.
No, I 100% agree with that. Like, again, they've been in this little rut. I mean, they've been around 500 since January, right? They've played great, then they've looked not so good. Didn't look great coming into the playoffs, but again, everything resets. You have to lean on that experience. You have to lean on, what you've done in the past. But again, Carolina, knows how to beat them. And the players know what's coming. Now you have to figure out a way to beat it. I think, if it's me, I'm looking at some film from 2001, Colorado team, how they played New Jersey with that trapped kind of style, quick passes out, quick breakouts, use your speed, get in there and cause havoc because, like, and get pucks low to high and get traffic in front, because that's the way you're going to beat Carolina. Again, it's very tough in that building, very tough in the playoffs. It's a different animal come playoff time. But New Jersey has the ability to steal a game on the road. Whether they do it is the next question. They just got to step up and, now got to play with some urgency from the start, drop of the puck. This non-compete for 45 minutes, 40 minutes, play 20 here, 15 there, not going to win you games. And that's something the Devils have struggled with all year.
Well, as you said, it's something that they've done all year where, 45 minutes, they're going to have games where they don't play for 45 and then they only show up for 15. That's not a winning recipe. However, and I'm going to change the track a little bit on you since, I'm going to give you our first blast from the blue line on our Blue Line Blast podcast this year. At least they were not the Rangers who this year would only show up for 5 to 10 minutes out of their game. You want to say the Devils didn't show up for 45 minutes and still played 15? Okay. The Rangers throughout the year consistently showed up for 5 to 10 minutes and didn't show up for 50 minutes to 55 minutes consistently. And Peter Laviolette paid the price for it. Now, that happens a lot to him in the second season of his coaching tenures. But this team, this core, has become – they've lived up to their mantra of coach killers. David Quinn wanted them to play hard-nosed, straight-edge, simple hockey. He's gone. Gerard Gallant wanted them to play hard-nosed, straight-edge, simple hockey. He's gone. Peter Laviolette wanted them to play hard-nosed, straight-edge, simple hockey. He's gone. 3 coaches, 3 of them, wanted them all to play the same way, and they couldn't. They didn't do it. Yes, there were some bright spots. They went to 2 Eastern Conference Finals. But then when things got tough, they decided to revert back into bad habits. And that's an issue for them. And, Rangers had their breakup day of their exit interviews today. Mika Zibanejad talked about how communication is key, stressing how, communication happened. Igor Shesterkin talked about how he felt that something broke mid-season and they couldn't adjust. Calvin DeHaan didn't walk back his comment from the other day. Zach Jones didn't walk back his comment from all season long. Chris Kreider was dealing with things. Thank you to the Ranger beat writers who were all there asking the questions and then putting out the quotes on Twitter and in their stories and everything. It speaks to a larger issue at hand for that team that they fell so far so quickly. So you want to say, oh well, the Devils made the playoffs. The Devils are in the playoffs. The Devils were able to overcome difficulties this year, and they might very well be able to in this series if they make the adjustments. The Rangers were not able to overcome their difficulties. It has cost them another coach, and who knows what else is going to happen in this offseason.
No, it's a great point you bring up about the Rangers, right? Like, again, 3 coaches, 4 years, after 2 trips to the Eastern Conference Final. Gerard Gallant talked about the talent, but it's not just about talent. It's playing with heart. It seems like there's a fracture in that room. We saw it even in the offseason, the way things were handled with Barclay Goodrow. Then it moved to Jacob Trouba. And look, we say it, managers manage, coaches coach, players play. If players want to be a part of management and want to be a part of it, then they have to buy into what the coach is selling and what the team wants to do. The Rangers acted, and I'm going to be honest, they acted like children. They got their backs up in a roar because guys in the locker room, they felt were good for the room. We're being treated fairly or unfairly. But Chris Drury decided to do what was best for business for him. He couldn't get it done in the summer. Now, in November when you're 12-5-1 and sitting in wild card 1, even though you may not, your record is better than what you're showing on the ice, is not the time to start changing things. You probably should be doing it the end of the offseason, the end of the season. But they have to look at a lot of things. Peter Laviolette's gone. Should Chris Drury go the way he's been building this team? You can't hotshot championships in the National Hockey League. It takes time. Yes, they went to the Eastern Conference Final twice, but they lost to 2 teams that showed you how to win Stanley Cups and how to play playoff hockey. We know Chris Kreider's name's going to be out there. So Zibanejad says, well, my contract is what my contract is. Well, yeah, but you know what? Roberto Luongo said his contract sucked, and he still got moved. They have questions with Keandre Miller. We saw that there was just too many distractions from this team from the word go, from the start of the offseason when Chris Drury tried to clear money to get Igor Shesterkin signed. You had Alexis Lafreniere. You have players coming out. You moved Capo Caco. There's just a lot of moving parts right now. Again, Kreider playing all year through injury. Again, I don't want to hear about everybody saying, oh, LTIR, LTIR. Well, if you have a player that's really injured, that's what LTIR is for. And if he was really injured after Four Nations and at the beginning of the year, maybe he should have been playing. That's just my opinion on that matter. But the Rangers were a dysfunctional mess. It was a dysfunctional season, and it ended for them. And they have to really look themselves in the mirror. And there's going to be real questions about roster construction and what they going to do, because let's be honest, something has to change in that room because they just can't run it back.
First of all, I can't believe you actually used the phrase "best for business." Especially after this weekend, but okay, we'll move past that over here. Now, I do want to take point of something that you said. You said when they're 12-5-1 and in the first wild card, now that's not the time to be making changes. I'm going to push back against you slightly there. Yes, it's not the time to make wholesale changes.
Right.
You do need to augment the roster through the season, even if you're in first place, because oftentimes the team that you start the season with is not the team that you're going to end the season with, regardless of whether ending the season means no playoffs or going out in the first round or winning the Stanley Cup. Famously, in 1994, the Rangers were in first place. They were cruising to the President's Trophy. Mike Keenan told GM Neil Smith, I want changes made. I want this, and this done to the roster in order to win us the cup because I don't think we've got it right now. This coming from a coach whose team was literally wire to wire the President's Trophy team. Neil Smith said he bit the bullet. He said, okay, fine. He went out. He augmented the roster. He changed over a decent part of that roster too, and they went on to win the Stanley Cup. So like I said, I'm pushing back against your. It's not the time to make change. It's not the time to make wholesale changes when you're 12-5-1. But yes, you still should be making changes. But maybe next time do it quietly, Chris Drury. Don't outwardly put out there a memo to everyone that is going to somehow find its way into the public eye. Okay, because this is the world we live in. This is 2025. This is not 1925. Okay, it's going to get out there that you named Chris Kreider, Jacob Trouba, etc., saying, oh, by the way, we're open for business. Okay, you want to do things, and I know Islander fans are going to rip me to shreds for what I'm about to say. Do things the Lou Lamoriello way. Do it quietly. Okay, maybe don't do what Lou is doing, but do it his way of keeping it quiet.
Well, it seems like the GMs and players and something's going on this year because, maybe this is our second Blue Line blast on our first episode because it seems like these guys are just taking truth serum, and Jim Rutherford just made it clear. I mean, we all kind of knew this was a possibility down the road, but he's now openly said that Quinn Hughes wants to play with his brothers. Like, dude, I mean, look, it's great for content. Don't get me wrong. Please don't hold back going forward. But I think that's something that also should be kept in the room and done quietly. But the fact that he's put it out there in the world, we all knew it was a chance that the Hughes brothers could play together. I don't think it's going to happen in Vancouver, like Jim Rutherford said. That's soft tampering. But the fact that Quinn Hughes is a free agent in 2 years, and the likelihood of him staying, unless something really, really changes, i.e., what we saw in Winnipeg, everything. Oh, Quinn Hughes to the Devils, and the boys are going to be together again.
So you have no idea how annoyed I am at Rutherford for that comment today. So I was at the Devils media veil. I go back to my hotel. Can't you see behind me? It's a lovely hotel room.
Lovely hotel room.
To go shoot a video of a recap of everything that was talked about today. I put the recap out as our, for the Sportsology update for the Devils on their off day. And not 5 minutes after that update, Jim Rutherford comes out. By the way, Quinn Hughes wants to go play with his brothers. Jim, baby, listen to me, please. Next time you need to say something, either say it much before the updates go out, or don't say it at all, or wait a day. Okay, don't do that.
No, it's true, man. Like, he literally, like, all these GMs this year, everybody's taking the truth serum, which is great. I love it. Like, everybody's being candid, like we saw with Dylan Larkin in Detroit. He's not happy with the way Steve Yzerman handled the trade deadline for the Detroit Red Wings. They're kind of, they should be in the position the Montreal Canadiens are in, being in the playoffs right now. Instead, they're on the outside looking in again. Then you had, Greg Cronin let go in Anaheim after a 21-point jump. And Pat Verbeek says, well, I think it's time for a change of direction. Even after our exit interviews, we felt like we needed to go with a different voice. Usually that doesn't happen after a 21-point jump in the standings. And oh, by the way, he expects the Anaheim Ducks to be in the playoffs next year. That might be tough in that division. We know the Buffalo Sabres are looking to make changes too. I mean, just a lot to touch on here, but I mean, it seems like everybody's just taking that truth serum around the league, Matt.
You want to talk about truth serum? I can't believe that during the Rutherford comment you didn't bring up this part about the Rick Tocchet. Oh yeah, we're gonna we're not gonna pick up the option on his contract. We've had great dialogue, but we're not gonna pick up the option on his contract because we don't want to force someone to stay here whose head is somewhere else. End quote. Did you see that quote? He's basically saying that Tocchet doesn't want to be here. Now, who knows what Tocchet's comments will, and I mean, I doubt Tocchet will actually address those comments in any meaningful way other than to just say, look, Rutherford can say what he wants to say. But come on, you want to talk truth serum. How are you not saying that right after the Quinn Hughes part?
That's true. That's very true. Fair point by you. And then I'm going to follow that up by saying Rutherford says that, Elias Pettersson, trade options on the table too. All options are on the table with him. The dysfunction in New York, the dysfunction in Vancouver has led to why they've missed the playoffs. And there's a lot of dysfunction in Vancouver, and there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. There needs to be a direction. Again, I go to it. The Winnipeg Jets had an exorcism. Kevin Chevel, day off, went to his top guys and said, hey, this is my game plan. Are you in or are you out? They got rid of Blake Wheeler. Look what's going on in Winnipeg. Vancouver and the New York Rangers need to follow suit and get everybody in a room and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what needs to be done. If you're in, great. If you're out, we'll find a way to move you and we'll start over. And oh, by the way, Jim Rutherford also said, I believe back in January, he's like, well, if we rebuild, Quinn Hughes is not going to be here. So, I mean, the writing is kind of on the wall.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to go out, and I don't believe in the, using the supernatural as a crutch for anything. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label something now. And I am not the first person to say this, but I'm going to be the first person to say this on our new Blue Line Blast podcast. It's the curse of Bruce Boudreau, and that is not in bed to him, okay? This is not his fault, okay? He was mistreated in Vancouver towards the end. You saw the debacle that turned into where, oh yeah, he's going to get fired, but by the way, he's still coaching, and you wait to fire him until 2 weeks later, or the poor guy dealing with that. And just starting from that point on, you saw the dysfunction in Vancouver. You want to mistreat good guy Bruce Boudreau. You want to mistreat literally one of the nicest and just gentlemen in the game. Vancouver had it coming, plain and simple. It didn't be the curse of Bruce Boudreau, even though he will obviously push back against that because he'll be like, no, listen, it has nothing to do with me or anything. But you trace it back to that time, Vancouver's dysfunction has grown, and then they've gone, and now they're right off a cliff.
Right off that cliff. And look, there's going to be a lot to break down, right, with the Canucks, with all these breakdown days and, breakup days, as they like to say in the National Hockey League. And, oh, by the way, the Stanley Cup playoffs are rolling through. We have a lot to dissect. We have a lot of time to do it. This is just the first episode, and we're just getting started, people. This is the Blue Line Blast podcast. Your host, Matthew Blittner. I'm Jim Biringer. Guys, get it up on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms. We're just getting started. It's a pleasure to be here with you along for the ride. Take care, and we'll be back again real soon.
See you soon.